Hello guys, I hope you all had a great day. My name is the Night Teller, and today I invite you to wind down from your day with these horror stories I picked just for you. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to know when I will post my next videos. Now relax and enjoy your night. It was just past midnight when Detective Rachel Kincaid got the call. A body had been found in the old industrial district, behind a warehouse long abandoned by the city. The streets were silent except for the faint drip of leaking pipes and the echo of distant train tracks. Rachel arrived to the stench of copper and rot. The victim, a young woman, was sprawled against the brick wall, her throat slit with a precision that made Rachel's stomach knot. Blood had pooled beneath her, and on the wall above her head was something worse than the wound itself. A number, painted in her own blood. 1. Rachel tightened her jaw. It wasn't random. Someone was counting. The medical examiner confirmed it. This wasn't a frenzy, it was surgical. The killer had cleaned the blade afterward, wiped fingerprints, and positioned the body like a grotesque exhibit. Whoever did this wasn't just murdering, they were keeping score. And in Rachel's gut, she knew one thing. This wasn't the last body. 2 weeks later, there were 3 more victims. Each scene was staged in the same manner, each marked with a consecutive number, 2, 3, 4, always written in blood, always clean, precise, ritualistic. The press called him the accountant. But the police knew it wasn't about money. It was about order, about control. Rachel hadn't slept in days. The killer was accelerating, taking trophies she didn't want to imagine. Worse, he was taunting her. Envelopes had begun arriving at the precinct, plain white, addressed to her. Inside, pages torn from an old leather-bound ledger, each entry filled with meticulous handwriting. Names, dates, and always a final column labeled balance paid. Some of the names matched the victims. Some hadn't been killed yet. And one of those names was hers. Rachel pinned the photographs to the board in her office, her eyes bloodshot from staring too long. 4 bodies, 4 numbers, each scene left in places no one should wander at night. Empty factories, derelict apartments, service tunnels beneath the subway. There was no pattern in the victims' ages or appearances. The only thing that tied them together was the ledger. Whoever the accountant was, he had written their names down long before their throats were slit. Her partner, Detective Mark Harlan, leaned against the doorframe. "You haven't gone home in 3 days." Rachel didn't look up. "He's counting, Mark. He won't stop until he's finished." "Finished with what?" She pointed at the board, at the bloody numbers painted above lifeless faces. "Whatever the final number is." The next envelope arrived on a rainy Thursday morning. Inside was another ledger page, but this one was different. No list of names, just a single message, written in neat block letters. "Detective Kincaid, you are falling behind." Rachel's skin crawled. It wasn't just taunting, it was personal. He was watching her. That night she triple-locked her apartment door and checked every window twice. She left the television on, volume low, trying to drown out the silence. But around 3 a.m., she jolted awake. The TV was off. Her front door was unlocked. And on the kitchen table sat another envelope. Inside, 5. They found the 5th victim the next morning in a parking garage, his body staged beneath a flickering light. The number 5 had already been painted above his head before the cops even arrived. Rachel stared at the scene, bile rising in her throat. He had been in her home. He had left the number for her before the body was even reported. Mark pulled her aside, whispering harshly, "This bastard is in your head. That's exactly what he wants." Rachel shook her head. "No, Mark, he's not in my head." Her voice cracked. "He's in my house." Rachel moved into a motel on the outskirts of town, a room with buzzing fluorescent lights, peeling wallpaper, and the constant hum of traffic outside. She told herself she would feel safer there, but she didn't. On the second night, she noticed it, a reflection in the motel's grimy window, a figure standing across the street, half hidden beneath a hood, unmoving. She yanked the curtain shut, heart hammering. By the time she dared to peek again, he was gone. She called Mark. "I think he's watching me," she whispered. "You've been awake too long," he said, though his tone lacked conviction. But deep down, Rachel knew the truth. The accountant had found her again. The sixth body came fast. A young man, early 20s, found in the stairwell of an apartment block that had burned down years ago. Number 6 was scrawled in blood on the cracked plaster wall. But this one was different. A second message was waiting, painted beneath the number. "Balance approaches." Rachel's chest tightened as she read it. She didn't know what the balance meant, but the thought gnawed at her. A ledger always ended in a final total. What if that final number was a massacre? They analyzed the ledger pages. The handwriting was impossibly neat, mathematical in precision. Each name written with care, as though the killer was documenting debts owed. Rachel spread the pages across her desk. Dozens of names, more than the confirmed victims, some crossed out, others untouched. And there near the bottom of the list, Rachel Kincaid. She froze when she saw the column beside her name. "Due very soon." Her blood ran cold. Rachel left the precinct at midnight, exhausted, the rain drenching her coat. She was halfway across the parking lot when she heard it, the scrape of boots on wet asphalt behind her. She spun, gun raised. Nothing, just the hiss of rain. But then she saw it, an envelope tucked beneath her windshield wiper. Her hands shook as she tore it open. Inside, a photograph of her, taken through her motel window while she slept. And beneath it, the number 7. The next day, they found the 7th body, an elderly man this time, staged in a wheelchair in the middle of an empty street. His throat slit like the others, the number 7 painted across his chest. Rachel's legs nearly gave out when she saw him, not because of who he was, but because of what was taped to his wrist. A motel room key. Her motel room key. Rachel didn't bother collecting her things. She left the motel in the middle of the night, gun in hand, scanning every shadow for movement. The accountant had been in her room. He had left the key on the victim's wrist like a signature, proof of how easily he could slip into her life. She drove until sunrise, then parked in front of the precinct. Sleep was impossible, so she buried herself in the case files again. Every detail, every bloody number, every face blurred into the same question. Why them? Why this order? But no matter how long she stared, she couldn't make sense of the ledger, except for one truth: her name was getting closer. Detective Mark Harlan found her slumped at her desk, eyes rimmed red, hands trembling from too much coffee. "You're unraveling, wretch." "He's escalating," she snapped. "We've had 7 bodies in 3 weeks. 7, he won't stop." Mark placed a hand on her shoulder. "You can't stop him if you're falling apart." Rachel met his gaze. "He's counting down to me, Mark. I can feel it." For the first time, Mark didn't try to argue. His silence was worse than words. The 8th victim was discovered in a church basement, bound to a chair, eyes gouged out. The number 8 painted in dripping arcs across the altar. Rachel stood in the damp, candle-lit dark, bile burning her throat. She whispered a prayer she hadn't said in years, not for the dead, but for herself, because she felt it. The circle was tightening. Later, an envelope arrived at the precinct. Inside, a single folded page. When the ledger closes, all debts are paid. At last, a thread. One of the victims, a woman named Ellen Price, had once testified against a financial advisor accused of fraud. The advisor's name, Caleb Vance. Vance had disappeared after serving only 2 years. No current address, no employment record, but Rachel's instincts screamed. A man obsessed with numbers, debts, and balances, who better to become the accountant. Mark frowned at the file. It's thin, circumstantial at best. Rachel's voice hardened. It's him, I know it. The call came at 2 a.m. Rachel jolted upright, fumbling for her phone. Detective Kincaid, a calm, measured voice said. You're wasting your time digging through my past. Her blood froze. Vance. He chuckled softly. Names don't matter, numbers do, and your number is coming due. Where are you? She demanded. But the line had already gone dead. Victim 9 was found hanging from the rafters of a gymnasium, the body swaying like a pendulum. Across the polished floor, the number 9 was scrawled so large it filled the room, painted in broad strokes of red. Rachel stared up at the dangling corpse, her fists clenched. She could almost hear the killer's voice whispering above her. Tick-tock, detective. Balance approaches. Rachel hadn't slept in more than 40 hours. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the numbers, the corpses, her own name scrawled in blood across the ledger. She taped her apartment windows shut, triple-checked locks, and set her service pistol on the nightstand. None of it mattered. Every creak in the dark, every whisper of the wind felt like his breath against her ear. At 3:17 a.m., her phone vibrated. A text message. No number, no contact, just 2 words. Death soon. The 10th body was found in a school playground before dawn. A woman, bound to the swings, her head tilted back at an impossible angle. Across the slide in dripping crimson. 10. Rachel broke down at the scene, fists pressed into her eyes until Mark pulled her back. He's escalating, she muttered. He's getting closer to me. He wants me to watch. Mark shook his head grimly. No, Ratch, he doesn't just want you to watch. He wants you to follow the numbers. They hunted Caleb Vance's old connections, ex-clients, prison guards, family. Every lead dissolved into nothing. It was as though the man had been erased, replaced by the ghost they now called the accountant. Rachel slammed her fist on the desk. He's smarter than us. He's planned every move. Mark watched her, worry etched across his face. If we keep chasing shadows, the only name we're gonna find in that ledger is yours. Another victim, number 11. A young nurse posed in her scrubs on a hospital gurney, throat slit neatly like all the others. But this time there was something different. Beside the body, carefully folded, was a page torn from the ledger. Rachel picked it up with gloved hands and read the entry. Rachel Kincaid, balance due, 12. Her breath caught. She wasn't just on the list. She was next. Rachel begged the captain to put her on leave, to assign someone else to the case. But the captain only shook his head. He's fixated on you. If we pull you out now, he'll vanish again. You're the only bait we've got. Bait, that word burned in her skull. She wasn't a cop anymore, she was prey. That night she sat alone in her car outside the precinct, hands shaking around her steering wheel. Across the street, a man in a hood stood perfectly still under a streetlight. When she blinked, he was gone. They set up a sting operation. Rachel would stay at a safe house rigged with surveillance while undercover officers watched from unmarked vans nearby. Hours passed. Nothing. Midnight came and went, the silence thick as syrup. Rachel tried to steady her breathing. Then the lights cut out. Every single bulb in the house went dark at once. She heard the creak of a floorboard upstairs. Her gun was in her hand before she realized she'd moved. Mark, she whispered into her radio. Static. Another creak, closer now. And then silence. Rachel held her breath, gun raised, every nerve in her body screaming. The house was pitch black, the silence broken only by the faint tick of the old clock in the hallway. Then footsteps, slow, deliberate, directly above her. Her pulse thundered in her ears as she crept toward the staircase. Mark, do you copy? She whispered again into her radio. Nothing but static hissed back. Halfway up the stairs, she froze. A soft tap-tap echoed from the room at the top, like metal on glass. She aimed her weapon toward the doorway. "Come out," she barked. The sound stopped, and then from the dark room ahead came her own voice. "Come out." She staggered backward, bile burning her throat. It wasn't possible. It wasn't her. But it was her voice, perfect and exact, echoing through the dark. "Rachel," the voice whispered. "Balance due, Rachel." Her flashlight beam caught movement, a figure darting past the doorway. She fired 2 shots, the blasts deafening in the silence. By the time she reached the room, it was empty. Only a cracked window swayed open, rain misting the floorboards. On the wall, smeared in fresh blood, was the number 12. They found her the next morning. Victim 12, a woman with dark hair, dressed in the same leather jacket Rachel often wore. Her throat was slit, her face mutilated until it looked eerily like Rachel's own. Mark's face was pale as ash at the scene. He's replacing you." Rachel stared at the corpse, the air leaving her lungs. She understood the message now. He wasn't just promising to kill her. He was erasing her, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but his design. Another envelope arrived. Inside, a single ledger page with 1 line scrawled across it. "You've already died once, ready to balance again." Rachel tore the page to shreds, her hands trembling. "He's breaking me," she whispered. Mark gripped her shoulders. "That's what he wants, but we're close. He slipped last night. The surveillance picked up a partial plate when he left the safe house." Her eyes snapped to his. For the first time in weeks, she felt a spark of hope. The plate led them to an abandoned shipping warehouse on the edge of the river. Rusted steel beams loomed above them, the smell of oil and decay thick in the air. Inside, the walls were covered in numbers, painted in blood, etched into the concrete, carved into wood. Dozens, maybe hundreds. And in the center of the room, a single chair sat beneath a hanging light. On it lay a leather-bound ledger. Rachel approached, gun raised. She opened the book. Every page was filled with names, dates, balances. The last entry was hers. "Rachel Kincaid, balance due, tonight." "Detective." The voice slid from the shadows, smooth and calm. A man stepped into the light. Mid-40s, sharp suit despite the grime, his eyes cold as glass. "Caleb Vance." Rachel leveled her gun, hands where I can see them. He smiled faintly as though amused. "Guns, bad investments, detective, they always depreciate." Her finger tightened on the trigger. "You killed 12 people." "Not killed," he corrected. "Balanced, each owed something. Each was marked just like you." Rachel's gun didn't waver, though her arms ached from the tension. Vance's smile was infuriatingly calm, like a teacher correcting a slow student. "You don't understand yet, do you?" he asked softly. "I understand you're a sadist who wants to be famous," she snapped. "Fame?" he almost laughed. "Fame is for men who beg to be remembered. I don't want memory. I want order. Every name in this book owes something. Every debt must be reconciled. Do you know why you're here, detective?" "You tell me," she said, voice shaking. "Because you failed them." He gestured at the walls of numbers. "You were supposed to protect them. You didn't. Balance requires that you join them." Her stomach dropped. The bastard didn't just kill at random. He chose people connected to her failures, her unsolved cases, the victims who had slipped through her fingers. Vance drew a knife from his jacket, a long, slender blade polished to a mirror's gleam. He held it like an extension of his arm, not with rage but with reverence. "You're not the first detective who's hunted me," he murmured, stepping closer. "But you will be the last." Rachel's hands trembled, but she steadied her aim. "Drop it, or I swear I'll." "Shoot," his grin widened. "You won't, you can't. That ledger's already closed." For a heartbeat, she believed him. Her finger hovered, paralyzed. Suddenly, movement behind her. Mark charged from the shadows, weapon raised. "Drop the knife, Vance." Vance moved like lightning. He flung the blade, not at Mark, but at the overhead light. Glass shattered, plunging the warehouse into pitch black. Rachel fired blindly, the crack of her gun echoing. Sparks flew as a bullet ricocheted off steel. A scream tore the air. She couldn't tell if it was Mark or the accountant. Her flashlight beam cut through the dark. Mark was on the floor, clutching his shoulder, blood seeping through his fingers. And Vance was gone. Rachel dragged Mark to cover, her breath ragged. Her flashlight swept across the concrete walls. The numbers seemed to crawl in the beam, endless, suffocating. Then she saw it, fresh paint glistening, a new number. 13. Her skin went ice cold. The number wasn't painted before, it had been painted during. And it was waiting for her. Sirens wailed outside as backup swarmed the warehouse. But by then, Vance was gone, slipped through the labyrinth of tunnels beneath the docks. Rachel stayed behind as paramedics hauled Mark away. She stood in the center of the warehouse, staring at the empty chair, the ledger still lying open. On the final page, under her name, someone had written in dripping red ink. Balance carried forward. Her knees nearly buckled. The ledger wasn't finished. Her debt wasn't due tonight. It was still coming. Days passed with no sign of Vance. Every alley, every flicker of shadow made Rachel's heart stutter. She barricaded her apartment, left the TV running day and night, and still she felt him, watching, waiting. When she finally dared to open her fridge, she screamed. Every shelf was empty, except for a single ledger page pinned to the back wall with a knife. On it her name, beneath it a date. Tomorrow. Rachel didn't sleep. She sat on the floor of her apartment, flashlight in one hand, gun in the other. The ledger lay open before her, pages flipping as if moved by an unseen wind. Every name she had ever failed, every unresolved case, every victim who had slipped away, Vance had written them all down, and at the very bottom, her name. She whispered into the dark, "This ends tonight." Chapter 36, Shadows in the Alley. The next night, Rachel followed a tip to the old docks. Rain-slicked cobblestones reflected the weak glow of flickering street lamps. Footsteps echoed behind her, slow, deliberate. She spun, gun raised. A hooded figure stepped from the shadows. Vance. "Detective Kincaid," he said softly. "We meet at last." "Your killing stops here," she said, voice shaking but firm. Vance tilted his head. "Stop. No, balance must be paid, and yours is overdue." The docks became a maze of shipping containers and rusted cranes. Rachel pursued, but every step was mirrored. He was always ahead, leaving traps, false paths, and ledger pages to taunt her. She dove behind a crate as a knife clattered past her shoulder, narrowly missing her head. Her heart thundered. "Why do you do this?" she yelled into the night. "Numbers," he replied calmly. "Order. Every life has a value. Every debt must be settled. You are part of the equation, detective." Rachel finally cornered him in a warehouse stacked with crates. She raised her gun. "This is the end." Vance smiled. "The ledger doesn't end, Rachel. It only carries forward." He lunged with the blade. She fired, and the bullet grazed his shoulder, sending him crashing into a stack of crates. The sound of splintering wood echoed through the cavernous space. Vance rolled, knife in hand, blood running down his arm. Balance is never simple. There's always a consequence. They fought in the dim light, gun and knife clashing, shadow and blood blending into a nightmare dance. Rachel slashed at him, her adrenaline raw until the knife clattered across the floor. Vance pinned her briefly, chest against hers, whispering, "You can't stop what's written." Rachel seized the moment, driving her elbow into his jaw. He staggered back. She grabbed the knife and pressed it against his chest. Her voice was cold, hard. "Your ledger ends here, Vance." Sirens wailed as backup finally arrived, officers swarming the warehouse. Vance collapsed, blood pooling beneath him, eyes wide and unblinking. Rachel stood over him, chest heaving. The ledger lay open at her feet. She picked it up, scanning the pages. Every name but hers was crossed out. she whispered, almost in disbelief. Balance paid. And for the first time in weeks, she exhaled. Days later, Rachel returned to the precinct. She left the ledger in evidence, but she couldn't shake the feeling of eyes on her back, shadows in the corners of her vision. Even though Vance was gone, the ledger had left its mark on her. She would never sleep the same. She would never walk alone at night again. But she survived, and she had a gun, and she had a ledger that for now was closed. The numbers would haunt her. The debt would always be remembered. But Rachel Kincaid was still alive. Detective Mara Voss had seen her fair share of murders, but nothing like this. A young man had vanished from the city streets late at night, leaving only a trail of blood in the alley behind a closed butcher shop. The blood wasn't random. It was precise, almost ceremonial. When the coroner examined the body, they discovered the horror. The victim's heart had been removed, cleanly, with surgical precision. No signs of struggle, no fingerprints, just gone. Mara's stomach churned. "Who does this?" she whispered to herself, staring at the ledger of missing persons growing longer each week. By the end of the month, 5 more victims had been found. All of them, young, healthy, all with hearts missing. The killings were increasing in frequency, and each crime scene was more elaborate than the last. Graffiti scrawled near the alley read, "For balance, a heart must be tasted." Mara frowned. The killer wasn't just a murderer, they were a ritualist. Each kill carried meaning, and the choice of victims was deliberate. "This isn't random," Mara muttered to her partner, Detective Ian Cross. "He's picking people for a reason, and it's going to get worse." The first letter arrived at the precinct one rainy morning, a thick envelope sealed with a crimson stain. Mara opened it carefully. Inside, a single sentence written in blood. "Your heart will be next, detective." Her hand shook. The killer wasn't just claiming lives, they were taunting her, drawing her into their twisted game. "I've got a name for him already," Ian said grimly. "The Heart Thief." Mara didn't smile. The name felt too accurate. Late one night, Mara walked home after reviewing files. The streets were nearly empty, rain dripping from the streetlights. Something felt wrong. A shadow moved in the corner of her vision. She spun, gun raised. Nothing. Then a whisper, "Detective Voss." Her heart pounded. The voice was close, impossibly close, but no one was there. A glint of metal reflected the lamplight, a knife, and a faint, crimson stain led her gaze to the nearby wall, a small heart symbol carved fresh. The Heart Thief was watching, always waiting. Mara arrived at the scene hours later. Another victim, a young woman found in a dimly lit courtyard. Her chest was ripped open, her heart missing. The precision was inhuman. Mara stared at the scene, nauseated. The killer didn't just remove hearts, they collected them like trophies. Ian shook his head. "He's getting bolder." Mara swallowed. "And he's sending us a message." The message was clear. He could take anyone, anywhere, anytime. And soon it would be her turn. Mara studied the crime scenes late into the night. Each victim's body was arranged carefully, hands folded or positioned in grotesque prayer-like poses. Candles, black feathers, and strange symbols surrounded the corpses. "This isn't just murder," Mara whispered to Ian. "It's a ritual. He's performing some perverse ceremony with the hearts." Ian frowned. "Do you think it's some kind of cult?" Mara shook her head. "No, this is personal. He wants control, fear, worship of his own depravity." A photo of the last victim's heart, cleanly removed and placed on a silver plate, burned itself into her mind. A call came in at 2 a.m. from a terrified citizen. The man claimed someone was following him, whispering about hearts. Mara and Ian arrived quickly. The man's story was incoherent, but in his apartment they found a single item, a small human heart-shaped charm carved in bone, with Mara's initials etched into it. The heart thief wasn't just targeting random victims, he was targeting her now. "I've got a bad feeling," Ian said, eyes wide. "He's close." Mara's hands trembled. The killer had escalated. She could feel it, like a shadow pressing against her chest. That night, Mara walked home from the precinct, carefully checking every shadow. Rain-slick streets reflected the dim streetlights, and every echo of footsteps made her flinch. A figure emerged in the fog, tall, dark, moving silently. Her pulse spiked. She raised her gun. "Show yourself." The figure paused, tilted its head, then vanished into an alley. Only a faint, wet sound lingered like dripping blood. Mara felt the weight of eyes boring into her back. She ran. Every instinct screamed that the heart thief was watching, stalking her, always one step ahead. The next morning, one of Mara's colleagues, a rookie named Peters, failed to report for duty. He was found hours later in an abandoned warehouse, chest open, heart missing. Mara arrived at the scene, stomach turning. Peters had been cleaned out like the others. Symbols were etched around him, faintly glowing in the dim light. I can't let this happen again," Mara whispered, clutching her gun. Ian placed a hand on her shoulder. "We're getting close. He's leaving clues, patterns. We just have to follow them." But Mara couldn't shake the feeling that the killer was drawing them into a trap, a final feast for her heart. That night, Mara patrolled a known high-risk alley. Rain poured, streets slick, and every sound echoed unnaturally. A shadow moved at the far end. She raised her gun. "Freeze." A low chuckle echoed, then a whisper, "Your heart, detective, I can smell it." The heart thief stepped into view. Tall, gaunt, face pale and hollow, eyes black as coal, teeth sharp and yellow. He held a small silver blade, slick with something dark. Mara fired. The figure twisted impossibly, dodging the bullets, moving with predatory grace. She realized with terror that this wasn't just a man, it was something inhuman. The hunt had begun, and this time it was personal. Mara ran through the rain-slick alleyways, heart hammering, gun raised. The heart thief was always just out of reach, watching, stalking, playing with her. Every step she took echoed, but the sound of wet, deliberate footsteps behind her never matched her pace. He was everywhere and nowhere. She paused, hearing a low hiss. Turning, she saw a shadow detach from the fog, tall, angular black eyes glinting in the streetlight. He whispered her name, "Mara." Her pulse surged. The predator wasn't just hunting. He was savoring the fear, feeding off it like a dark ritual. Hours later, the body of another young woman was found in a derelict apartment building. Her chest was open, heart missing, eyes wide with terror. Symbols were etched into the wall around her in dark crimson. A chilling message: balance must be maintained. Mara stared at the scene, pale and trembling. The killer wasn't random. He was methodical, intelligent, ritualistic. And now the pattern was clear. He was escalating, moving closer, leaving clues that taunted her. Ian whispered, "He's showing us the way, but I don't like it." Mara's hands shook. "He's leading us into a trap." Mara returned home late at night, streets empty and slick with rain. Every shadow seemed to twitch unnaturally. A reflection caught her eye in a puddle. Black eyes stared back. She spun, gun raised. But the alley was empty. Then the whisper, "Your heart smells sweet tonight." She fired into the shadows. Silence, except for the soft drip of water. A chill ran down her spine. He hadn't fled. He was watching from just out of sight, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Sleep was impossible. Mara dreamed of hearts, crimson and beating, placed neatly on silver plates. The killer appeared in every corner of her mind, smiling, whispering promises of pain. Even during the day, she saw him in reflections, in crowds, in darkened doorways. Her paranoia grew. Every heartbeat reminded her of the predator lurking nearby, his hunger for hearts insatiable. Ian noticed her trembling hands. "Mara, you're pushing yourself too hard." "I can't," she whispered. He's everywhere, I can feel it. The heart thief's terror wasn't just physical, it was in her mind. A lead brought Mara to an abandoned butcher shop, the place where the first victim had vanished. The rain poured through the broken roof. The smell of iron was strong, almost overwhelming. Bloodstains lined the floor, old and new. Symbols scrawled in blood decorated the walls. Suddenly, a shadow detached itself from the corner. The heart thief emerged, tall, gaunt, pale, blade in hand. His black eyes glinted with anticipation. "You followed my trail, detective," he hissed. "Now it's time to finish what I started." Mara raised her gun, heart pounding, realizing the full horror. She was walking into a ritual meant to claim her heart next. Mara ducked behind a blood-smeared counter, gun shaking in her hands. The heart thief circled the room like a predator stalking prey. He whispered her name, low and guttural. "Mara, your heart, it calls to me." She fired. The bullets rattled off metal shelves. The killer didn't flinch. He advanced, every step deliberate, his blade dripping with old blood. Mara's mind raced. She had to survive, but every instinct screamed he was too fast, too precise. The heart thief lunged with impossible speed. Mara barely rolled out of the way, feeling the air ripple as his blade sliced inches from her side. She swung the gun as she scrambled for cover, hitting a shelf. Bottles shattered, blood slicking the floor. The killer hissed, stepping over the shards effortlessly. Mara knew then that this was no ordinary human. He was something else, something inhuman, a predator perfected in cruelty. Mara ran through the butcher shop, slipping on spilled blood. She ducked into a back room, panting. The heart thief paused at the doorway, black eyes glinting in the dim light. He tilted his head, almost amused, before stepping forward, dragging a blade across a table with a metallic scrape. The sound echoed, horrifyingly, through the abandoned building. Mara realized the walls themselves seemed to guide him. He knew the layout as if it were part of him. Every escape route was anticipated. Desperation overtook Mara. She grabbed a cleaver from the butcher's counter, swinging blindly. The heart thief dodged with supernatural agility, hissing. He lunged again, and Mara drove the cleaver into his side. He shrieked, a sound between human and beast, and staggered, but he didn't fall. Blood sprayed across the floor and walls. Mara's own hands were slick with it. Adrenaline screamed in her veins. She had to end this now or die. The heart thief advanced, towering over her, blade raised. Mara's breath came in ragged gasps. She lunged, plunging the cleaver into his chest. He roared, staggering back, but eyes black as coal glinted with malicious intelligence. She slashed again, twice more, and finally he collapsed, convulsing, blood pooling beneath him. Silence filled the room. Mara sank to the floor, trembling, staring at the inhuman figure. She was alive, but scarred. The heart thief's terror was over, for now, but the echoes of his hunts would haunt her forever. Mara stumbled out of the butcher shop, rain pouring down her blood-slicked hair. Ian appeared at the street corner, eyes wide. "You made it," he whispered, pulling her to safety. Mara shook her head. "He's not human. We can't stop him. He hunts, waits, and enjoys every moment. He knows fear." Ian nodded grimly. "Then we'll have to fight smarter, trap him." But Mara knew the heart thief's intelligence was beyond normal. Any mistake could cost her life. Weeks passed. Mara tried to sleep, but nightmares plagued her. Hearts on silver plates, black eyes in the shadows, whispers in the dark. Another victim was found, a friend of Mara's, cleanly gutted, the heart thief's signature. She stared at the scene, shaking. "He's closer than ever," she whispered. The killer was escalating, and now it wasn't just a hunt, it was personal. A cryptic note arrived. "Come to the warehouse, bring your heart." Mara knew it was a trap. Every instinct screamed danger, but she couldn't let him continue. She armed herself, steeling her mind. "This ends tonight," she told Ian, "one way or another." They entered the abandoned warehouse, shadows stretching like fingers. The smell of iron filled the air. The heart thief appeared suddenly, stepping from the shadows. Black eyes glinted, blade in hand. "You came," he hissed. "I knew you would." Mara fired, but he twisted unnaturally, evading each shot. He lunged, swinging the blade. Mara rolled, striking him with a metal pipe. He shrieked, staggered, but didn't fall. The room became a battlefield. Blood, shadows, and terror blending into one. Mara swung wildly, using every weapon she could find, pipes, knives, anything. The heart thief was fast, stronger than any human. He slashed at her repeatedly. Cuts opened on her arms and legs, blood dripping to the floor. Yet every attack she landed caused him pain too. The fight wasn't just physical, it was a battle of wills. Mara's fear fed him, but her determination kept her alive. Cornered near a stack of crates, Mara caught her breath. She realized he was toying with her again, drawing her toward the center of the warehouse. "This is it," she whispered to herself. "The final moment." She gripped her makeshift weapon tighter, eyes locked on the blackened gaze of her predator. Mara baited the heart thief toward a weakened beam above the warehouse floor. He lunged and she dodged at the last moment. Using all her strength, she pushed a crate, destabilizing the structure. The beam fell, striking him across the shoulder, forcing him to the ground. He roared in fury, clawing at her. She stabbed with everything she had. His body convulsed. Mara plunged a knife into his chest, twisting with all her strength. The heart thief screamed, a horrid, unnatural sound, and collapsed motionless. Silence followed, thick and suffocating. The warehouse smelled of blood and iron. She stared at the lifeless figure, her body trembling. The terror was over for now, but the memory would never leave her. Weeks later, Mara walked the city streets, alert, haunted. Ian stood beside her, scanning every shadow. The bodies had stopped. The heart thief was gone, dead, she hoped. But every alley, every darkened doorway made her heartbeat quicken. Her nightmares persisted. Black eyes, stolen hearts, and the memory of the inhuman predator she had fought and barely survived. Mara returned home one night. Rain lashed against the windows. She poured herself a drink, trying to calm her racing heart. And then she heard it, a faint, wet whisper from the shadows. "Your heart." Her hand trembled on the glass. She froze, listening. Perhaps the heart thief was gone. Perhaps. But Mara knew some monsters never truly die. They linger in shadows, in whispers, and in the corners of your mind. She shivered, knowing that some fear never leaves, and that survival often comes at the cost of peace. Eli Turner had heard the warnings but ignored them. Hollow Woods had a reputation, missing hikers, strange sounds, and shadows that moved against the wind. When he and 3 friends, Clara, Jason, and Theo, found an old, abandoned cabin deep in the forest, they were thrilled. The cabin was small, 2 rooms with a crumbling stone chimney. Dust coated the furniture and cobwebs hung like tattered curtains. "Perfect for a weekend getaway," Theo said, unpacking a bag of supplies. Night fell quickly in the woods. The forest outside became a wall of black, broken only by the pale glow of their lanterns. Shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally, bending at impossible angles. The trees groaned like they were alive. Jason laughed nervously. "This place gives me the creeps. Maybe those warnings weren't jokes after all." Eli shook his head. "It's just a cabin in the woods. Nothing lives out here except deer and squirrels. We're fine." But as the fire crackled in the hearth, a low, guttural growl drifted through the trees, carrying a wet, sloshing sound. It wasn't animal and it wasn't far away. Something was moving, waiting, and watching. Sleep came in restless fragments. Around 2 a.m., Eli woke to scratching on the cabin walls. It was heavy, deliberate, too precise for branches. Clara stirred. "Did you hear that?" Eli swallowed. Probably just branches. He didn't believe his own words. The scratching became a thud, then a dragging sound like something massive sliding along the outer wall. A shadow moved past the window. He froze. Two golden eyes, enormous, glowing faintly in the dark, stared at him. The creature's face was impossibly wide, its teeth jagged and too sharp for a human. It didn't move. It just waited, breathing in slow, deliberate huffs. Dawn brought no relief. Jason's bed was empty, sheets tangled. No footprints led outside, no blood, no clue he had simply vanished. Eli and Clara called his name, their voices trembling. The forest responded with a soft, wet growl like the echo of a massive throat. Thea refused to leave the cabin, convinced the woods themselves were alive. Eli grabbed a flashlight and followed clawed tracks deep into the forest. Each step made his stomach clench. The prints were enormous, impossibly wide, with jagged indentations that suggested claws. They led deeper, toward the heart of hollow woods, where the sunlight barely penetrated the canopy. Something had been hunting them long before they arrived. By nightfall, the cabin no longer felt safe. The creature moved with terrifying speed, sometimes glimpsed through the trees, its hulking silhouette bending unnaturally. Its growls weren't just sounds. They were warnings, almost intelligent, calculating. Eli whispered, "We need to leave." Clara shook her head. "There's no road. It's like it's watching every path we could take." Suddenly, the fire went out. Darkness enveloped the cabin. Eli's flashlight flickered, illuminating something massive pressed against the doorframe. A shadow that bent like it shouldn't, eyes glowing molten gold. The thing growled softly, almost approvingly, then vanished into the black, leaving the four friends paralyzed with fear. By the second night, the creature had learned their patterns. Every noise, every footstep, every whispered argument was noted. It stalked them, circling the cabin, slipping silently between the trees. Clara screamed as a branch snapped just behind her. Theo aimed a flashlight, but the beam revealed nothing. The air smelled of wet earth, blood, and decay. Eli realized the monster wasn't just hunting them, it was playing with them. It wanted fear, it wanted panic, it wanted to break them before the kill. And then they heard it, a wet, sloshing sound coming from inside the cabin. Something had found a way through. Around midnight, the cabin shook. The windows rattled violently, and a massive clawed hand slammed against the door, splintering the wood. Jason screamed, "It's here, it's here." Eli grabbed his rifle, hands trembling. Clara and Theo huddled in the corner. The thing didn't come inside, at least not yet. It prowled outside, growling, sniffing, testing them. Then it vanished into the black trees, leaving jagged scratches on the door and blood smeared across the threshold. Eli's stomach churned. It's not just big, it's smart. It knows what we fear. The next morning, Eli followed tracks through the muddy forest. They led to a shallow pit, filled with broken branches and tufts of fur. The claw marks were deep, jagged, something far heavier than any bear. Clara peered into the pit. "It's intelligent," she whispered. "It's marking territory." Eli nodded grimly. "And it's waiting for us to slip." Every rustle of the trees, every croak of a frog, set their nerves on edge. The forest seemed alive, and the hollow thing's presence was everywhere, unseen but tangible. As night fell, the temperature plummeted. Fog rose from the forest floor, curling around the cabin. Every shadow was a potential threat. They barricaded doors and windows as best they could, but it didn't help. The growls and sloshing noises returned, closer than ever. The thing circled, sometimes visible for only a heartbeat, a hulking silhouette, its glowing golden eyes boring into them. Eli whispered, "It's learning us. It knows our fears, our weaknesses." Theo shivered. "We're trapped, there's no way out." The hollow thing roared, a sound that shook the cabin to its foundation. Jason disappeared first. One moment he was fumbling with the fireplace, the next he was gone. No fight, no scream, just gone. Clara sobbed. Eli cursed under his breath. It's picking us off one by one. We can't stay here. The claw marks on the walls seemed to pulse in the dim light, almost as if the thing was marking its kills, laughing silently. The forest beyond the cabin seemed to close in, branches twisting like skeletal fingers. Eli knew one truth. Survival meant leaving, but the hollow thing would not allow it. That night they attempted to leave. Eli carried a flashlight, Theo had an axe, and Clara clutched a kitchen knife. Every step toward the road felt wrong, as if the trees themselves shifted to block them. A wet, sloshing sound echoed behind them. Golden eyes appeared between the trunks. The creature lunged, moving faster than thought itself. Eli swung the rifle. The thing dodged effortlessly, teeth snapping inches from his face. They ran blindly into the forest, the sound of tearing branches and growls all around them. Clara tripped over a root, and the hollow thing was there in an instant, towering over her. Its jaws opened impossibly wide. Eli screamed, raising his flashlight into its eyes. The creature recoiled, hissing, buying her a fraction of a second. They scrambled up, running deeper into the darkness, the forest seeming endless. Eli and Clara stumbled through the dense forest, branches slashing their faces and clothes. The moonlight was barely enough to see, and the fog wrapped around them like cold hands. "Which way?" Clara whispered, her voice trembling. "Anywhere but here," Eli said. Every instinct screamed that the creature was always just behind them, silent but patient, waiting for the perfect moment. A sudden snapping of a branch froze them. Two glowing golden eyes blinked from the shadows. The hollow thing was not chasing. It was stalking, calculating. Eli grabbed Clara, ducking behind a fallen tree as the monster passed by, claws scraping the mossy bark. The next morning, they discovered Jason's body hanging from a twisted tree limb, his neck bent at an impossible angle. His eyes were wide open in frozen terror. Clara screamed. Eli pressed a hand over her mouth. "Quiet," he hissed. "It's here. It's always watching." The forest felt alive, branches shifting as if guiding the monster toward them. Eli realized the creature's intelligence was horrifying. This was no mindless predator. It knew fear, it adapted, it hunted with intent. By nightfall, paranoia gripped them. Every sound, wind, cracking twig, dripping water, was a potential ambush. Eli noticed shadows that didn't match any tree or rock. Clara swore she saw faces in the fog, eyes glowing gold. Eli's flashlight flickered, then died. Darkness swallowed them. The growls came again, surrounding them, moving through the black like smoke. "It's here," Clara whispered, voice shaking. "It knows we're scared." Eli gritted his teeth. "Then we fight, or we die trying to escape." They found a clearing and tried to make a stand. Rocks and fallen logs were barricaded as best they could. Eli sharpened a stick into a crude spear. Clara held her knife, shaking. The hollow thing emerged from the fog, taller than any man, its limbs bending unnaturally, jaw stretching impossibly wide. It tilted its head, as if amused by their fear. The growl rolled through the clearing, low and wet. It lunged with incredible speed. Eli stabbed at it with the spear, but the creature dodged effortlessly. Clara slashed with the knife. Its clawed hand caught her wrist, drawing blood. They ran again, deeper into the hollow woods. The creature followed silently at first, then faster, claws slashing at leaves and branches. Every step forward felt like running in place. The forest seemed endless, and the fog thickened, obscuring paths. Clara fell, screaming, and Eli grabbed her hand just as the creature lunged. Its teeth snapped inches from her face. Heart hammering, Eli pulled her up, and they sprinted blindly into the darkness, the sound of wet growls echoing behind them. The realization hit them. The hollow thing didn't just hunt. They were being played, toyed with, herded toward some unknown end. After hours of running, Eli and Clara stumbled into a cavern hidden beneath the forest floor, a natural hollow, dark and damp. The air smelled of decay and wet earth. This must be its lair, Eli whispered, flashlight beam trembling across the walls. Stalactites dripped from the ceiling, and scratch marks lined the stone, some deep enough to suggest immense strength. Clara shivered. We shouldn't be here, it knows we're here. Eli nodded grimly. The hollow thing had guided them here. It wasn't a mistake, they were walking into its trap. Inside the hollow, the darkness shifted. Shapes moved in the periphery, and golden eyes reflected faintly from cracks in the stone. Every step they took echoed unnaturally, making it impossible to tell where the monster was. A wet sloshing sound came from the far corner. Clara stifled a scream. Eli raised his spear, tense as a wire. Then it lunged from above the shadows. Its claws scraped along the stone ceiling before it dropped, landing with a thud that shook the ground. Its jaw snapped, a sound like tearing metal, and they barely dodged. The monster's attack was swift and brutal. Theo, who had tried to fight it earlier, was nowhere to be seen, likely already claimed. Eli jabbed with the spear, but the creature's speed and agility were inhuman. Clara slashed at its leg with the knife, but it barely reacted, turning toward them with glowing eyes and a hiss that made the cavern echo. The hollow thing lunged again. Eli's spear grazed its shoulder, and a spray of dark, viscous blood hit the stone. The creature shrieked, a sound that reverberated in their bones. They ran deeper, stumbling over roots and jagged rock, the sound of wet claws pounding behind them. The cavern twisted endlessly, disorienting them. Every tunnel looked the same. Every shadow seemed to contain golden eyes. Clara's whispers turned into sobs. I can't do this," she cried. Eli gritted his teeth. "We have to. If we stop, it wins." They realized the monster didn't need to catch them immediately. It was wearing them down. Hunger, fear, exhaustion, and panic were its weapons. Every sense was heightened, every heartbeat amplified. The hollow thing wasn't just hunting them. It was breaking them mentally before the kill. Finally, they reached a dead-end tunnel, walls slick with moisture. The growls behind them grew louder, echoing, surrounding them. The monster appeared, fully visible now, towering, humanoid but grotesque, limbs bending at impossible angles. Its golden eyes glowed with calculated malice. Clara screamed, "There's nowhere to run." Eli gripped his spear tighter, chest pounding. The creature tilted its head, almost as if it was savoring the moment. Then it lunged. The hollow thing lunged with terrifying speed. Eli thrust his spear forward, but the creature twisted, avoiding the point with an unnatural grace. Its claws slashed past his arm, tearing a deep gash in his jacket. Clara screamed, swinging her knife wildly. Her blade caught the creature across its shoulder, drawing a thin line of dark, viscous blood. It hissed, a sound that seemed almost human, and leapt back into the shadows, circling them. Eli's breath came in ragged gasps. "It's smart, too smart." Clara shook, staring at the monster. It's enjoying this." It was. Every movement, every strike was a game to it. The tunnel narrowed. Water dripped from the ceiling, pooling on the slick stone floor. Every step echoed, and the hollow thing used it against them. Golden eyes glimmered from the darkness ahead. The sound of claws scraping stone made their hearts pound. "We can't fight it," Eli whispered. "We have to outsmart it." Clara shook her head. "We're trapped, it's everywhere, we can't escape." And just as she said it, the creature leapt from above, pinning Eli to the wall with crushing force. He gasped, struggling as its claws raked the stone beside his head. Eli slammed the spear into the creature's chest. The hollow thing shrieked, staggering backward. He grabbed Clara's hand. "Run." They scrambled through twisting tunnels, stumbling over roots and rocks. The sound of wet claws pounded behind them relentlessly. Every shadow was alive, every echo magnifying their terror. Clara tripped, nearly falling into a deep pit. Eli yanked her up just in time. "Don't look back," he panted. "Just keep moving." The hollow thing's growls followed, close enough that their hearts felt like they might explode. They reached a cavern opening, light filtering faintly from a crack above. Relief washed over them, but the creature wasn't far behind. It lunged from the shadows, but this time Eli was ready. He thrust the spear into its chest. The monster shrieked, staggering, but it didn't fall. Its claws lashed, catching Eli across the side, ripping through his jacket and skin. Clara screamed and drove her knife into its side. The creature let out a deafening roar, a sound that shook the cavern walls. Eli gritted his teeth, ignoring the pain. "We have to make it to the surface. It can't leave the tunnels for long." After what felt like hours, they saw moonlight glinting through a crack in the ceiling. Clambering up jagged rocks, they burst into the night air. The forest was silent, eerily calm, as if it were holding its breath. The hollow thing emerged a moment later, but it hesitated at the edge of the tunnel, growling softly. Its golden eyes burned with frustration. It had been denied its kill, forced back into the shadows. Eli and Clara stumbled through the undergrowth, bleeding and exhausted. The forest seemed endless, but the road they had been searching for now lay just ahead. For the first time, hope flickered. They were alive, but the hollow thing was still out there waiting. Eli and Clara sprinted along the forest road, branches tearing at their clothes and skin. The hollow thing's growls echoed behind them, closer than ever. Clara gasped, blood streaming from a cut on her arm. "It's faster than we are." Eli didn't respond. His mind raced, searching for anything to turn the tables. They reached a fallen log and ducked behind it, listening as the creature circled, sniffing, growling, its golden eyes glinting in the moonlight. The hollow thing wasn't just hunting. They realized it was toying with them, enjoying their fear. Eli scanned the ground. A thick branch jagged at the end caught his eye. He handed it to Clara. "If it comes, aim for the eyes. That's all it has that's human-like." Clara nodded, shaking. "Do you think it will work?" Eli didn't answer. The growls had grown louder, closer. The forest seemed to close in, trapping them between roots and darkness. And then it appeared, a hulking shadow against the moonlit trees. It lunged. Clara swung the branch with all her strength, hitting the monster in one glowing eye. It screeched, staggering, disoriented. Eli jabbed at it with a sharp stick, raking its side. The creature howled in pain, but it was far from defeated. The hollow thing swiped at Eli, knocking him to the ground. Clara screamed as it loomed over him. Eli rolled to the side, grabbing a fallen rock. He swung, striking the monster's head. It howled, staggering back again. Clara shouted, "We can't keep running, we have to fight it now." Eli nodded grimly. "I'll distract it, you finish it." He drew the creature's attention, dodging its claws and snapping jaws. Clara, trembling but determined, circled behind it. She jabbed the jagged branch into its exposed side repeatedly. The creature shrieked, thrashing violently. Finally, with a desperate scream, it collapsed, convulsing before lying still, its glowing eyes dimming. Eli and Clara collapsed, bleeding, exhausted, and shaking. The forest was silent, the only sound their ragged breathing. They dared to stand. Around them, the hollow woods seemed normal again, almost peaceful. The fog lifted slightly, and the moonlight bathed the trees. Clara sank to the ground, sobbing. "Is it really over?" Eli pulled her close. "For now, but we'll never forget it. Hollow Woods, it's still out there, waiting for the next fools." Weeks later, they returned to civilization. Friends and family were relieved to see them alive, but the terror lingered. Every shadow, every forest edge made their hearts race. Eli kept a notebook detailing the hollow thing, its size, speed, intelligence, and hunting methods. Clara refused to enter a forest again. And sometimes, late at night, when the wind shifted just right, they could hear it, soft, wet growls echoing in the distance. The hollow thing was gone from their lives, but never truly defeated. Survival had its cost, and the hollow woods had claimed a piece of their sanity forever.